and action. Hey, I'm Jason McLaughlin. I will be Pat Armstrong, the Research Market Director for MedDevice, Director of Market Research.
Hi, my name is Jack Watson, and I'm going to be role-playing T.S. Lee, the Vice President of Lee Medical Supply, and the son of Ann Lee, the founder. So, to kick this off, nice to meet you. Welcome to Thailand.
Kaptung Krap.
Dhanibat. I think that's not. So we're pursuing this joint venture here between Lee Medical Supply and MedDevice, and we're very excited for this new prospective joint venture. Welcome to Thailand. We understand you guys are looking to engage in this new market or exploit this new market, so to speak. A market that is really growing and its middle class is rising. A ton of potential in the next 10 to 15, 20 years, not to mention ancillary countries surrounding Thailand. You're one of the first Western companies, so to speak, to potentially partner with a Thai company. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of various contacts that we've accrued over the last 30, 40 years being in business. So welcome, and hopefully this negotiation will get off to a great start, and we can come to a mutually beneficial agreement that is satisfactory for your boss, Mr. Thompson, and for my boss, my father, Mr. An Lee.
Excellent, TS. Thank you very much for having us. I am very excited as I personally make the move from research to international management. I was very excited to hear from my boss at MedDevice, Mr. Thompson. He was thrilled to have met An Lee at the Phuket Island, the Sands Resort. And you have a copy of Exhibit A in terms of our understanding of what we are to accomplish here today. As far as I am concerned, I really only want to pursue the four aspects of decision-making, staffing, profit distribution, and conflict resolution models for the joint venture of MedLee. So really, our conversation today, I want to reiterate, is really based on relationship building, and I hope that after our half-hour talk or more today, we might be able to move forward in terms of a formal contract. And I'm totally open to verbal agreements as long as we understand the terms. So in short, I have about 12 to 15 different points that I'd like to discuss with you so that I can present those to Mr. Thompson, and we can just move forward from there.
Okay, yeah, let's hear the points, and then I'll try to work through them systematically and see if we can come to an agreement on some, if not all of them.
Sure. So as you know, or maybe you've heard, MedDevice is currently a Fortune 500 company, and we've got at this time over 30,000 employees. So we have a pretty big belt in terms of our data-driven approach to make decisions, and most importantly, our merit-based evaluation of our employees. So we have a strategy that's been pretty successful in terms of getting the safest and the most advanced medical technologies out there on the market. We have a patented program that we're very proud of, known as the Med Device way of doing things, and we really consider it to be the best way, the right way, as we continue to grow into a more heavy set Fortune 500 company. So I guess to begin, I want to go ahead and set the context, because I hope that in short, as far as MedLee is going forward, we want to understand probably how long the contract will endure. So we have a proposal of a 5-year contract reevaluation.
5-year? Okay, let's just start there. So you want to start off with a 5-year contract negotiation. I feel like that's a little bit of a bold kind of, I'm not going to say presumptuous, but that may be a bold sort of situation here, given how quickly things change, not just with the bureaucracy associated with working in Thailand, but just how quickly the medical device industry changes with new products coming online and prices changing. 5 years would be pretty optimistic. Would you be interested in maybe doing a 2.5-year agreement? Start to see if things work. I don't know if you're familiar, but the way things are done in Thailand, agreements it's the more, not, shooting from the hip is probably the wrong term to use, but we pretty much do things on a day-to-day sort of basis. That way we stay pretty dynamic as market conditions change. Things in the United States of America may seem stable right now, and they tend to be stable over long periods of time, but you never know. In Thailand, we can have some sort of military coup in the next few months, and then that will be a wrap for MedLee, so to speak. So I think in the interest of both of our companies, I think a shorter duration of this joint venture may be more conducive to the market here.
I actually think that's a really valid suggestion, but I want to reiterate that Med Device doesn't want to limit itself just to the Thai market. We're super excited to have selected Lee Supply out of Pan Asia Pacific, but we definitely want to keep in mind our markets in China, the expanding markets, in mainland China there, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore, and that will bring forward some jobs and positions that we can talk about in a moment. But really, let's go ahead and say 3 years.
I think 3 years would work for us. It's just given the political uncertainty of this region that anything over 5 years is just asking for trouble. And I think I read somewhere in a newspaper article that most joint ventures fail after something like 2 or 3 years. So, our way of doing business and your way of doing business are literally diametrically opposed. So I think a 3-year initial agreement, if we agree to terms, but I like how presenting the duration of the term sheet initially is a good barometer for how we should approach the rest of the negotiation. So I think a 3-year agreement would work best for both of us.
I agree. A 3-year reevaluation will be actually in both of our best interests. And in terms of that 3-year evaluation, I think the main principle behind that is that we really want to maintain a profit static account in which we don't necessarily draw on profit that MedLee has accrued until after that 3-year period.
Oh, so no withdrawals of profits until after the 3-year period?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So almost putting our money into escrow for 3 years.
That's absolutely right.
And then after that, a profit sharing agreement of an equal 60-40 situation?
As far as I know, 60-40, we can reevaluate the terms further down the line, but if we establish that 3-year escrow, that would benefit both ends.
Given that my father is from a different era entirely, he assumes that that given that he's the one who initiated this conversation, so to speak, with Mr. Thompson, and given like pretty much the era in which he has learned business over the decades, of which he is confident, he assumes, probably incorrectly, that he can pull money at will. But I'm gonna supersede him here and assume that a year and a half. Could you split that? Could we do that after a year and a half instead of 3 years? And then we'll do a 50-50 sharing of profits.
Well, I would like to then maybe decrease the terms and the duration of the static profit escrow, as you put it, to perhaps 2 years. And I am not in the position to negotiate the 60-40. So that's not up to me in terms of how we move forward from there. But I am charged with the effect that I have to adhere to the static profit agreement in so far as our investment and understanding that we will not withdraw from the MedLee operation for the first period of the joint venture.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be. If we want to, decrease that to 2 years.
Yeah.
And if you like, we can even take it down to a year. As far as we demonstrate profit without withdrawal.
Yeah, I'm in a tough situation because I have strict orders from my father here on what I can and can't do. But like I said, he's largely out of touch with like current market forces and market agreements, especially coming from a Western-oriented culture such as yourself. I would say if we could have the whole profit static situation is something that I don't think he's even aware of. So we went from 5 years to 3 years reevaluation. If we drop that to 2 years with no profits taken out, I think it would be something that he could agree to. So if we do a 3-year profit static situation, a 2-year profit static situation, I think I could be able to talk him into that. Mm-hmm. Given that 2 years is not a lot of time, it's not too short of a time, and it's not too long of a time. I think that could be a good middle ground for him. He could probably wait 2 years to pull money out if he feels like it's money due to him. So
sure, I couldn't agree more. We won't be dipping into the pot on either side of
yeah.
So
I think moving forward, if we have obvious cultural barriers that we can't really hurdle, I think those barriers will become apparent a lot sooner than 2 years from now. I think they will become apparent within the next few months, if not weeks.
Obviously. So
I think 2 years would be a pretty safe bet in terms of just of going for it, taking a chance on each of our respective companies, seeing what happens, seeing if we can stay dynamic as companies, moving forward, evolving within those 2 years. And after those 2 years, if we're in the black, we can reevaluate, move forward, and make necessary changes. So I like that. I think 2 years is a fair situation.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Profits in escrow. That way, nobody feels like they're taking advantage of any situation here. In terms of profit sharing, Um, my father seems to think that the 60-40 initial venture round was generous, but I feel like that final 10%, so to speak, I feel like we make up for that with the relationships that we're going to be able to provide to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can drop that to 50-50, we'll make sure we make it worth your while.
Well, I definitely want to respect our time here today in terms of moving forward on the MedLee joint venture. But again, I have to reiterate that Mr. Thompson has not allowed me any leeway or addressed any sorts of distribution as far as I'm concerned. So I understand what Med Device is bringing to the table and what Lee Medical is also putting on the table. So I hope that we can maybe just move past that point that you've reiterated twice, because that's something that might have to go through my upline that I wouldn't necessarily be able to address with you today. But I know that if we're able to at least understand our 2-year static profit agreement, that's one thing that we can put on the table and we can evaluate in terms of where and how that profit, if and when it even occurs, could be distributed, for instance. And based on that, though, I think it's important for us to understand where we would agree to arbitrate if there was any sort of dispute. I have done a lot of research and I've worked in other industries, and I just want to point out that Mr. Thompson has expressed that if there is a need for resolution that can't be solved through the upline of Mr. Onley and Mr. Thompson, then it is our hope and goal that we can establish arbitration through international arbitration or the California court system. That's pretty much a formality. I don't anticipate any really escalating beyond our circle, really.
Really? Okay. Given that you and I are pretty much on an equal footing and with respect to our, our higher ups, we're essentially subordinates to Mr. Onley and Mr. Thompson, each of us respectively. How about we leave off that profit sharing agreement after the 2 years between those two? The money's in escrow after 2 years, and whatever balance remains in that account, Mr. Lee and Mr. Thompson can work it out between themselves, the profit sharing agreement, be it 50-50 or be it 60-40. Given after 2-year experiment, so to speak, with this joint venture, we can see who brings what to the table and where the strengths really lie.
Based on the information that I have, I absolutely endorse that assertion.
Okay, so we'll leave that at that. So after 2 years, we have a reevaluation. All profits earned within those 2 years must stay in escrow, and profit sharing agreements must be worked out between Mr. Thompson and Mr. Onley.
And how about our agreement to arbitrate in terms of escalated disputes?
Between employees
between employees, or perhaps if Mr. Thompson and Mr. Onley have to split hairs and push comes to shove.
I think those responsibilities fall to you and I. So if there's arbitration that you and I can't work out, our last ditch effort would be, our last resort would be to reach out to Mr. Onley and Mr. Thompson, but any arbitration will have to come through us. Be it employee dispute, if there's some sort of mishap with defective equipment, say, orders aren't being fulfilled, or a client relationship dissolves. I think that's something that's going to have to stay in-house below the level, the hierarchy of Mr. Thompson and Mr. Lee.
Okay,
So,
that's fair. So basically, we have um, an agreement to not arbitrate. How about that? We have a no arbitration agreement.
yes, if there needs to be, yes, if there's any intense disputes that need to be taken care of, they come directly to us, to you and I.
That's great as far as I'm concerned. And so that's one thing that I'm really excited about in terms of growing the company on the med device side and creating the joint venture, because it is our hope that Lee Medical will actually absorb the cost of our international sales office space in Bangkok. Do you believe that you'll be able to provide a venue for employees?
How many employees are we talking?
Well, at this time, it's looking like, as far as our executive sales team goes, we have on the table in terms of our proposal, 6 new executive positions that Lee Supply will appoint. 6 new positions that are at your behest, and then only 2 new med supply positions, med device, excuse me. Med device will actually only have 2 to 3 expatriate employees.
2 to 3, okay. So the majority of new hiring will be in-country, Thai-speaking employees.
Well, that's true. We do hope that you would have the network large enough in order to have some international sales associates that would be geographically specialized. As I mentioned, we are really looking at the Pan-Asia Pacific market. So we're hoping to really diversify. We want those 6 employees that you hire to be able to communicate well with the Indonesian market and Jakarta, Sumatra, those islands, closer to the other side of the area. And then also, of course, as I expressed, we really want to break into the Hong Kong market and the mainland market. So we're hoping that at least 2 of those might not necessarily be from Bangkok or the Thai region. But I understand these days that the mainland Chinese tourists in Thailand are pretty much making up the bulk of all the tourist industry. So,
correct. Yeah. Yeah, we'd be happy to make hiring. Hiring and firing is one of our strengths. Here in East Asia, we rely a lot on familial relations. Not just first, first cousin, sister sort of relationships, but cousins of the cousins, second and third cousins. It's really the network. It's not so much of like a LinkedIn sort of professional network. It's really a close-knit sort of community situation where we draw the best talent that we know from our close inner circles. Now, given the international relationship of this joint venture, and being familiar with your business structure, we understand you have an anti-nepotism rule in place for Med Device Inc. Given that this is a joint venture and essentially a third company being created out of the 2, I think we may have to lose, for lack of a better term, the anti-nepotism rule and give us full control of hiring and firing. We certainly have the skills and the in-house sort of protocols to keep the most productive members or employees in-house and fire the ones who aren't as productive. But moving forward, some of the most productive employers are those who are familiar, given their loyalty to the company. I set out like a new sort of paradigm for this new joint venture, and all new hires with English skills and with relations to adjacent countries, including mainland China, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Burma, Malaysia, all of it, are going to give preference in hiring to essentially network out from our base, from our base in Bangkok. So all new hiring that we will be doing, interfamilial connections will become secondary to any will become secondary to any new employees who happen to have these new relationships with adjacent countries and with English skills.
Well, sure, absolutely. We have a actual very successful recruitment process in terms of how we treat our recruiters as business partners. We have an approach where our recruiters are really considered vital contributors to building our business model. And before we really address how people may move through the corporate hierarchy of MedLee, I just want to confirm that Lee Supply is going to be able to provide that office space in the city of Bangkok.
Oh yeah, that's no problem. We'll be able to provide the office space, absolutely.
All right.
Really, our biggest hang up here is the strict protocols and principles that Med Device has instituted in North America. We feel that a new sort of principle / protocol for the Thai joint venture is going to have to be a little different in terms of the anti-nepotism rule.
Well, sure, and I understand where you're coming from, but I do have to iterate that strict is usually not one of the words that we use to describe the culture at Med Device, because what we really like to focus on in terms of what's important for the climate in the workplace is that all candidates are evaluated based on their merit. It's a merit-based promotion system. So we like to avoid preferential treatment. We never adhere to one-sidedness. We avoid discrimination. It's really an equal opportunity employment situation. And so what I think we're really talking about in terms of how MedLee is embarking on a joint venture is really just those 6 positions and those 2 positions. So we're really only talking about 8 positions in the short term. So as far as moving forward and understanding rules, well, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So if I can just iterate that the most important thing in terms of the Med Device culture and the successful management is that our candidates' approach to problem solving is more important than their connections, for instance. So we don't want to show any favoritism, because the truth is that the best performers, the people who are going to be the best on the job, are the individuals that are most qualified for the position, whether or not, they're a second cousin, as you might say. And in terms of any familial evidence, that won't necessarily have to come to the table if there is a model in place that supports equal opportunity for everybody that's under the umbrella.
Understood. Yeah. I feel like the key term here is recruitment. In the past, I've really recruited in-house in a familiar sort of sense, but like I said before, given the international nature of this business and the trajectory of where we want to be in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we're going to have to look beyond the core family, so to speak, and move beyond that and hire accordingly from education level, from connection level, from not so much like, as you say, a favoritism, but a real productive and experience oriented level. So yes, I feel like we're on the same page. I think our wires are just getting crossed in terms of our interpretations of the principles that Med Device has instituted in the past. So I feel MedLee joint venture will draw upon the best and the brightest within not just Bangkok, but the whole East Asia market. Family is sacrosanct in a lot of ways here, but we want to grow this business to be what we know it can be. And we can grow it even beyond our wildest dreams with this partnership. So if recruitment means limiting so-called favoritism and first degree family ties, we're willing to make that sacrifice and make our hiring and firing a priority based on experience and production levels more so than family favoritism. So I think we're on the same page with that.
Great, absolutely. And I appreciate your comment in terms of growing beyond our wildest dreams, because that essentially is what has made Med Device great. And that's one of the best things about the model that we believe in, because we're always trying to be creative about probing people's resumes. And so what we are really discussing, you and I at this point, are just those 8 positions, 6 of which will be appointed by you and only 2 appointed by Med Device. Lee Supply is creating 6 executive positions, and all we're requesting in terms of moving forward in the 2-year profit static agreement with the escrow to be reevaluated is that no insiders are necessarily appointed into those 6 positions, which you will be providing. That's the short end of what we're really looking for in order to maintain that successful culture that we've had as far as simple terms, technical work, and excellent sales, for instance.
Understood. I can't guarantee that no insiders will not be hired. We do have some extremely qualified candidates who happen to be so-called insiders that we've been planning to bring on for a while, but that's not to say they don't have international business experience and connections throughout the region. No, that's not a guarantee I can give that no insiders. I'm not saying all 6 employees that we're going to be hiring are going to be insiders, but I can't guarantee that there'll be 0 insiders hired. But you can rest assured that everybody hired is going to be able to pull their weight and is going to bring a unique perspective, both in business and in professionalism and in creativity to this new venture.
Well, that's understood, and I want to make sure that we can go ahead and hash out what those 8 positions might look like. But from the viewpoint of organizational excellence, what we really want to evoke is that we will all benefit from taking a fresh look at our hiring and our compression tactics in the end. Do you agree?
We agree entirely. In the past, we've hired more in-house, like I said, familiar relations, friends of friends, employees who happen to know somebody, even previous competitors. We've hired family members from competitors and past clients. But we completely recognize as a company that we've been a small player, so to speak, on the international stage, and that can change with this joint partnership with Med Device. So it's in our best interest to look beyond the interfamiliar and inter-employee recruiting pool, and we're going to be looking more regionally in terms of like the entirety of East Asia um, in the entirety of our country for the best talent that we can possibly source. All I'm saying is if we need to make 1 or 2 hires that we were planning on hiring already, we may have to make them, but that's not to say that they're not going to be some of the best recruits that we could make, given that these 1 or 2 potential employees we've been planning on bringing on have literally been with the company in one way or another for their entire lives. These are people who have a deep loyalty to this country and have a deep respect and understanding of the way we operate and the way in our vision moving forward. So all I can say is I can't give you a guarantee that 100% of the new employees are going to be family, in-house sort of hires, but the vast majority will be.
Well, I think the most important thing to reiterate is that we are of an agreement that we will absolutely take a fresh look in terms of recruitment and providing compensation packages for at least 6 to 8 positions, 6 of those positions being created by Lee Supply. We hope that Lee Supply will be able to provide those geographically specialized individuals throughout the Thai diaspora, the Chinese mainland, Hong Kong, Indonesia, and then just one of those coming over from MedLee. And then we want at least 2 executive secretaries provided by Lee Supply to assist those 4 executive sales associates. And then it is our hope that MedLee will be able to provide at least 1 expatriate executive general manager who would then be assisted by your appointment, whomever you decide that to be.
Yeah, we agree. Yeah, I will definitely agree to that moving forward.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Really sensible in terms of us getting places. So we really have covered a large majority of what I understand is supposed to be our responsibility as far as our profit distribution, our conflict resolution, and our staffing. So I guess the only thing that we really have to wrap up here, and hopefully we can talk about it today. If not, if we're running short on time and can't reach an agreement, is how we are going to establish decision-making and control as far as our board of directors is concerned. What do you suggest?
I'm sorry, you said the board of directors staffing?
Yes, sir. We're looking to see who and how we will distribute or envision our board of directors. I'll tell you that what I have in mind is that 3 of those directors will be associates that will have the capital that is necessary to support an operation such as this. 3 of those appointed by MedLee, and we're hoping that Mr. An Lee would also be able to recruit at least 2 of those directors in order to establish that board and accumulate the capital that will be necessary for our stakeholders. What do you think about that?
Let's see. Profit distribution. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the board is really going to consist of you and I as general managers for the respective region. In terms of the hierarchy, Mr. Thompson and Mr. An Lee will be making the most critical decisions pertinent to the company. Given that we have 24 months to make this joint venture profitable and sustainable, we're going to, let's see, in terms of board members, I don't think there's a real hurry to get board members. I think maybe the whole board member situation could be taken care of after the 2-year agreement.
Well, it's important for us to establish some sort of board so that we can get the types of capital investments that we need before we move forward in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So I wouldn't be able to agree to a 2-year holding pattern on a board of directors. It's something that we can discuss at a later point in terms of decision making. If you're not comfortable discussing it right now, perhaps we can meet sometime next week after we have a chance to mull over our staffing and our conflict resolution management that we decided today.
In all honesty, Lee Medical Supply has never really had a board. It's strictly hierarchical situation where Mr. An Lee is literally the dictator, for lack of a better analogy, of the entire company, and his subordinates, me at the highest end, pretty much do his bidding. But I think moving forward, a board for this joint venture will have to be something that we're gonna have to discuss at a different time.
Sure, that's great. I understand that.
The profit sharing situation. It's just tough to foresee how this could go. I think we made a big. I think the 2 years time window is a great. It's going to reveal a lot, the pros and cons of this respective venture here together, this union. So in terms of a board, I think the board should really just consist of you and I and Mr. An Lee and Mr. Thompson moving forward for this first iteration of this partnership. We've never discussed having a board in the past. We've never really needed to, but given our projections for growth, that's a discussion that we will need to have, but it's going to have to wait at least a couple quarters before we can really pursue that.
All right, let's go ahead and mull over everything that we've agreed upon today, because I understand that that board of directors is something that is pretty complicated, and we want to make sure that is pretty clear and understandable in simple terms. So we still have a little bit of wiggle room before we have to, present a formal agreement. So I've enjoyed talking to you today. I'll go ahead and report to Mr. Thompson the success that we've reached, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
The feeling is mutual. I thank you very much for your time and look forward to doing business in Asia. I know we could work together. I know we have some cultural differences we need to work out, but I feel like our interests are completely aligned in terms of where we want to be in the next couple of years. And I feel like we're playing a little conservative, which is good. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. We'll start with a light touch and see if it works. We'll work out the kinks. And then hopefully that'll create a stronger foundation moving forward into the next 5-10 year realm. So I appreciate your time on this. I feel like it was very helpful. I enjoyed our time together. So thank you.
Well, absolutely. This chance opportunity is going to present itself with some real world changes as we change the medical supply industry, and as we say in the American Southwest, California, que será, será. What will be, will be.
Will be.
It is not ours to see.
Well, I thank you again for your time.
Kaptun krap.